is this the most prolific family in the history of science? It's a family that includes two giants of science, a Nobel Prize winner, and even a world-famous author of science fiction who died on the same day as C.S. Lewis and the assassination of US President JFK. The patriarch of this family was a Victorian gentleman named Thomas. He was a professional scientist who coined the term Darwinism. You might have heard that Charles Darwin travelled the world on a Royal Navy ship called HMS Beagle. Well, this guy did something similar, although his boat went by the much cooler name of HMS Rattlesnake. Thomas's reaction upon reading Darwin's book on evolution was to say, "How extremely stupid not to have thought of that." Charles Darwin himself was reluctant to take part in public-facing debates with theologists, so Thomas took on that mantle and later earned the nickname Darwin's Bulldog. His own work looked at the evolutionary origins of birds from reptile ancestors and the controversial fact of humans sharing a common ancestor with apes. But unfortunately, like much of Victorian science, Thomas's thoughts were polluted with ideas of white supremacy and racism. Thomas's grandchildren, where the story gets really interesting. There was Julian, an evolutionary biologist, and he played a critical role in creating the modern synthesis. This combined Darwinian ideas about evolution with recent discoveries in genetics, and it still permeates science to this day, although it's coming under increasing criticism in recent years. He was the first director of UNESCO and the first president of the British Humanist Association. However, there was a darker side. Abhorrently, Julian also served time as president of the British Eugenics Society, believing that the lower classes were genetically inferior and that those weak genetic variants should be removed from the human gene pool. Another of Thomas's grandchildren, Andrew, won the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine in 1963 for discoveries related to how nerve excitation works. That brings us finally to Julian's brother, Aldous Huxley. He was the author who died on the same day as C.S. Lewis and JFK. He's probably most famous for his 1932 dystopian science fiction novel, Brave New World, where a future society is constructed as an intellectual hierarchy, where people's worth is related to their level of intelligence. Aldous displayed less hubris than eugenicist brother Julian, although they were close. There's no doubt that the Huxley family was incredibly prolific in terms of science and society. However, I believe there is a clear winner when it comes to the most prolific family in the history of all science. But I want to know if you had the same thoughts that I have. It's a family I think is much less problematic.